What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. If this is your first time here, I review movies and on occasion video games, TV shows, and movie trailer reactions sometimes. And today I'm going to be talking about the 14th installment in the DC Extended Universe, Blue Beetle, a movie sadly nobody is probably going to see because they announced the reboot before this universe was even done. I don't know why. Recent college grad Jaime Reyes returns home full of aspirations for his future, only to find that home is not quite as he left it. As he searches to find his purpose in the world, fate intervenes when Jaime unexpectedly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of alien biotechnology, the Scarab. The DC Extended Universe lately has been delivering movies where I've liked them in theaters but haven't necessarily really re-liked them on rewatch. Black Adam is one of those movies. The Flash, I've only seen once, but the more I think about it, the less I like that movie. I just don't like really how they handle Michael Keaton's Batman, where it's inevitable that he's gonna die eventually in the same scenario. Ugh. So I needed like a fresh palate cleanser for a DC movie, and I needed something that wasn't as big or as bombastic. I needed something that felt a little bit more small scale, and that's what I needed a Blue Beetle movie to be. I can seriously equate this to an Ant-Man movie. I mean, Marvel took Ant-Man, who was what, like a C-list, D-list superhero, and turned him into an A-lister overnight. The first two Ant-Man movies, I'm not counting Quantumania, because I think Quantumania is one that sets up the bigger picture for where this direction of the recent MCU is going to go. Those first two Ant-Man movies are the same vibe and tone that I get from Blue Beetle. They're just light, breezy entertainment that's really passable. It's very small scale, and I think it was time that the DC universe had a movie like this, which is a good thing because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Despite a lot of the cliches that are present throughout the movie, the script is a bit rocky. There's also a giant CGI fight at the end that everybody's probably going to be like, oh yeah, it just went into major superhero movie territory or superhero tropes. Of course, that's all here. It's a predictable script. There's something that happens with the father character, there's something mentioned, and then something happens with him later in the movie. It's like, yep, obviously, that's what happens, but it's really that light, breezy tone and the feeling of it being more small scale, but also the family dynamics here. There's gonna be a lot of people praising the representation in this movie, and that is to be commended. It should be praised. And for me, I think a big part of that is because of the family dynamics. You get to see how a Latino family operates and how their dynamics work within their family. Like, everybody just has a lot of camaraderie in this movie. Everybody's really excited for Jaime Reyes because he's about to get a job, but there's also things that they're dealing with as a family. And I think that those are actually the strongest parts of this movie, not the action, because I think the action is actually really well helmed in this movie. It's well filmed. The CGI is not all that noticeable, honestly. And the one thing I always give DC over Marvel is that they have practical suits. They don't just CGI the suits onto the heroes. So, with all of that combined, this makes a really fairly good origin story superhero movie with family dynamics that are at the heart and soul of this movie. The family stuff is by far the best. Everybody in this family is funny. Like, the Nana, can we get a spin-off of the Nana? I would love that. I want to see what the hell she was doing like 30 years ago. She's fucking awesome. George Lopez is awesome in this movie too. I never thought I would see George Lopez in a superhero movie. His humor, I heard a lot of people praising him, and he does deserve a lot of praise, but his humor was on and off, and I think his performance is really good. His humor was on and off for me, though, but that's another thing. Most of the humor works. It's a very humorous movie, and that comes with that light, easy to consume tone that this movie gives off, and the vibes of an early 2000s comic book movie, which might be a bad omen for some, but here it's not necessarily a terrible thing. Sometimes it feels good to just reach back and go into the past and create something that would have that vibe and bring it into the modern age. As long as it's well made, as long as it's well shot, as long as I can have some fun with it, I'm okay with a movie feeling like it was made in the early 2000s, and not the whole thing doesn't. The action really feels like it was made for today's audience. Me saying that might be a tone clasher for a lot of people. I didn't feel that way, even though I felt like it did represent an era of early 2000s comic book movies. It had some of the heart of the better early 2000s comic book movies, like the first couple of X-Men movies or the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Things like that, like the good early 2000s comic book movies. Like the entire plot revolving around this scarab. Of course, it's probably in the comics, but that's something you can only get away with in the early 2000s, I feel like. But somehow they make it work for this movie, and they don't make it feel like it's this big thing. This movie's not a movie that sets up a larger universe or sets up a sequel for a trilogy or a franchise. It's just its own thing. And I have to commend the filmmakers and the writers for doing that. It's not looking at the larger picture here. Susan Sarandon as the main villain, I thought was easily the weakest part of this movie. She's just a corporate mogul who's doing corporate mogul bad things, but also the movie at times feels like it forgets about her. And honestly, you can make the case that she's not even the main villain of the movie, that somebody else is. Like her henchman could be the main villain of the movie because he's the one that gets into all the fights and the scuffles and the carfuffles with Blue Beetle, while she just sits back at the helm and is like the behind the scenes type of person, but she's the one orchestrating everything. And I don't know, she didn't work for me. There wasn't anything really to her other than big corporate bad person. That's all she was. Like I said, the movie is a bit cliched. It ends on a giant superhero fight where it's like, hey, there's an explosion in the background and it's punchy kicky time. It doesn't last too long, but just for once, I want a superhero movie to end in something a little bit more grounded and not so flashy, if you know what I mean. It's not as flashy as something like The Flash or other superhero movies that have come before, like Black Adam's final act. It is grounded in a way. I just want these superhero movies and TV shows to just do something different in the third act. You don't always have to rely on a big bombastic finale that feels like a boss battle in a video game. That's more of a nitpick. I would say easily the weakest aspect of this movie is the villain, played by Susan Sarandon, how she plays it, how she's written. It brings a lot of the movie down. Not necessarily to the point where I hate the movie, but to the point where I was like, this is great, to the point where I was, yeah, that's fun, that's entertaining, and easily consumable. I'm curious to see how this is gonna hold up on rewatch compared to like something like I said, Black Adam or The Flash, where I've liked Black Adam less on rewatch, and I've only seen The Flash once, and I've liked it less the more I think about it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one holds up, especially when we're looking at the reboot of this entire universe coming within the next few years. I enjoyed Blue Beetle with 3/4 worth of a bucket of popcorn. So if you guys have seen Blue Beetle, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.